Do you ever feel a bit stuck and bogged down trying to create perfect art? Let me show you how I embrace the looseness and expressionism and get rid of that perfectionism in my art. Let's go. I didn't realize expressive artworks, painting, drawing, whatever, can actually be learnt / taught. I thought, because I've always been really loose and really sketchy and stuff, I thought, that's just how I am. But actually, I wasn't using any techniques. It was probably just a lack of giving a crap. But today, we're going to go through 5 different techniques that I use in my drawings today that help me stay loose, stay expressive, and make some really cool and interesting marks, which would result in some cool paintings and drawings. These techniques can be applied to any medium. So it can be applied to painting, drawing, printmaking, whatever you like. But for today's video, I'm going to be concentrating on how it applies to charcoal drawings. So still feel free to watch if you're a painter, because you will still probably get something out of this as well if you want to be a bit more freer and looser with your paintings. Number one. Right, let's go. Very first thing I do all the time. This is one of the things I probably do the most in all of my artworks, and I kind of do it without even thinking now, but is moving away from my canvas or my paper, and that can look like a couple of different things. The first way you could look is you could literally just hold your pencil at the end. Okay, so you're creating probably what, 6 inches worth of distance between the paper and your hand. Another great thing to do is to literally stand out like you're doing a spell, like you're in Hogwarts. Wingardium Leviosa. You know what I mean? Now, if you're a painter, I'm going to add this bit in. When I really started getting into acrylic painting or painting, I invested in these bad boys. These are long paintbrushes. This set's by Reeves. It's fairly inexpensive, but because they're longer, it allows me more distance between me and the canvas. And if I add that with an arm's length, suddenly I'm like over a meter away from my canvas, which is a brilliant distance to be at. But let's take it to the next level, because this strategy is pretty hard when you come to charcoal sticks. Did you think I was pulling one out then? Charcoal sticks, or you know, the soft pastels and things like that, because they're quite short. So even if I go arm's length, well, I'm only getting that a little bit extra on top of my arm's length. So then I went to a expressive drawing with charcoal workshop with an amazing lady called Jodie Graham. She's fantastic. You should have a look at her stuff. She's my idol. I flippin' love her. And she introduced me to the idea of taping your charcoal, your compressed charcoal, onto the end of a stick. So literally, I haven't prepped this bit, but just down here on the ground, I have a couple of sticks. So I have this really super long stick here. That's for when I'm feeling super adventurous. And I'm like, yeah, let's just see what I can do. Let's just see if I can just get some, what's going to happen with this super long one. You know, and you can see, I can get a really far away. And then if I go my arm as well, suddenly I'm like 1.5 meters away from my canvas. And what this does, basically, it stops you, it limits the amount of control you have over your line and your mark making. And that, a couple of things happen. Number one, you stop becoming so perfect and worrying about those little tiny details, and you start making these super expressive marks, and you get these really amazing variation in line and marks that you just can't get. You can't replicate those marks on purpose. You can't get a compressed charcoal stick and go up to a piece of paper and replicate that mark. It doesn't happen. It's something that you can only get when you lose a certain amount of control over that line, and I love it. But you combine that with a couple of other things I'm going to suggest. Mwah, chef's kiss. Amazing. I literally just use either painter's tape, or in my drawer, for some reason in my drawers I've got packing tape. And that works just as good. I tape it on. My favorite charcoal, I've only got one stick of it at the moment. So I tape it on, then I have to take it off and things like that. But that's just part of it. That doesn't bother me. Then I've also got a smaller stick here. And that is essentially about the same length as that paintbrush I was showing you. So especially if I am doing some smaller details, or I'm doing a smaller artwork. Because sometimes a massive stick on a smaller artwork, it's just not, I can't get that movement of mark, but I can with a smaller stick. Do you have to get sticks from your garden? No, you can use whatever you like. If you've got a ruler, use a ruler. Great, stick that on the end of it. It doesn't matter. This is what I love about this first one, is you literally can use anything. Get into it, try it, you'll love it, I promise. Maybe, maybe not. I can't promise that actually. I retract that promise, but I can promise you I love it. Does that count? Number 2. Let's talk about number 2 on the loo. It smells a little bit like number 2 because I just did a pop off. Number 2 is another up there, do it all the time. I've switched between doing this and not regularly, is using my non-dominant hand. Now we're going to get a little bit scientific here, and I'm going to explain the benefits of using your non-dominant hand. There's 2 main benefits I find. The first one, if you are a righty like me, I'm a right-handed girl, I write with my right hand, I do all my art with my right hand. When I switch my pencil or my charcoal or paintbrush or whatever into my left hand, our brain, different parts of our brain are activated. So when I'm with my right hand, my left side of my brain is activated. When I use my left hand, my right side of my brain is activated. And let me tell you what your right side of your brain does. It is in control of your artistic and creative side. It controls your spatial and visual awareness. Like, it's crazy. So by simply using your left hand, you're unlocking all of this visual spatial awareness, all of this creativity and artisticness. There's a new word for you. Artisticness that you normally wouldn't with your right hand. Now, of course, if you're a left-handed person, I'm so jealous. So jealous. You get this all the time. And you know what? I've actually started taking notice of whether artists are left-handers or right-handers. And let me tell you, you would be surprised how many lefties, left-handed people, are brilliant artists. Because I think part of that is that the right brain is so activated all the time. So that's the first benefit, okay? And what you find is the marks that you put down require less precision thought and they look better. That's the first benefit though. There is a second benefit. So the second benefit applies to both left-handed and right-handers. So it's just when you swap to your non-dominant hand, again, it goes back to that losing control. You have a little bit less control. It's like, you know, when you write with your left hand, it looks a bit scrawly and stuff. That's what I want in my artworks. So I get that. And then when I do things like twist my charcoal as I'm drawing that line with my left hand, lovely, lovely. So again, you lose that perfectionism and you get some amazing marks. I don't think you realize that by getting a variation of a thick, thin, different shape line, we're still talking about line, how much that can add to your artworks. And I love it, absolutely love it. Losing some of that control, and again you get that looser, more expressive. It takes practice, especially if you're a perfectionism. The practice doesn't come with the using the left hand. The practice comes with your thoughts around it. You need to be prepared that you're going to make some ugly stuff. But lots of people think my artworks are ugly. I love them. So just remember that. Okay, it might not look exactly like the budgie, or might not look exactly like the lorikeet, but God, they're interesting. Geez, they will look great on someone's wall. Know what I mean? And it's interesting and makes people want to look more. And when I've been looking into doing gallery shows and putting in proposals, and they want artworks that draw people in. So for me, this draws people in, because suddenly they go, oh, it's not just a line. Oh, there's more to that. Oh, that's interesting. So, yeah. Number three. Number three. This third strategy is about starting with a mess. So my B-roll, you'll see me doing this. So I get my reference picture and I'm making a mess. I'm making a mess in a rough shape. Doesn't even have to be the shape. Could go out to the side. It doesn't matter. I'm making a mess on my paper that I'm then going to go in and carve away with my eraser. Now the eraser is not necessarily cleaning it up. It's making a picture out of the mess that's already there. So yeah, you apply all that mess with scribbles and stuff in rough shape of the animal, the picture that you're doing. It might not, it could be all over. It doesn't really matter. It's about mess. Ruby's here to say hi. All right, so yeah, it's about making that mess and then refining. One thing you need to be very careful of with this strategy is you need to be careful that you are not trying to clean up the mess too much. The mess is part of the artwork. So this is not the time to then go, oh, I need to correct every little tiny thing. You need to allow some of that artwork, some of that mess to still shine through, but you're containing that chaos in the picture itself. This is when you get into this part where you're cleaning up the mess, trying to draw the picture out of it. I see it as a bit of a dance between taking away charcoal with erasers, but then adding it as well. So if you've gone too far one way or the other, you're doing this dance to and fro with the artwork. And you can do that whole adding and taking away as many times as you need to. It doesn't matter. You can do it 10, 15, 20 times. Makes no difference. You do it till you think you're done with that artwork. One thing you do need to be aware of with this though is that when you apply that much charcoal to a piece of paper, it is very hard to get back to the pure color of the paper. So the pure white of the paper, or the pure whatever color your paper is. You will get what we call a history of your marks still left behind. For me, I love that. I think that's great. That's perfect. That doesn't bother me because I feel like it adds so much more interest, and those added layers just add extra added interest to the artwork. However, if you do this and you don't like that you can't get back to the pure white, add some white. So I like using soft pastels because they're really nice soft and you can get a lot of white down. I know some people who use a little bit of white gouache as well. There's lots of different options for adding that white back in if you want to. And you might only add it just in little bits and bobs just to make the whole drawing pop. There's options. There's so many options. Charcoal is more forgiving than you realize, and you can fix most things, but I think the imperfections are actually what makes the drawing so much more interesting and more expressive. So in my opinion, I think you should leave them. Not all the time, it depends on the drawing and whether you've got enough contrast and things like that. If you need more contrast, go for it, add it. You do you though, you make your artwork how you want. Robbie's chewing my stick. Number 4. Number 4, let's go. Using your materials in unconventional ways. So let me explain that. An eraser isn't just for erasing. A blending stump isn't just for blending. Charcoal is not just for drawing. I'll explain that a little bit more for you. A lot of times I will turn my charcoal on the side and use that to block in big shapes. I will sometimes use some sandpaper to make charcoal powder, which I'll then apply with a paintbrush or my blending stump. Use that to actually apply that, or use the old fingies, getting that in there and really working that into the paper. The idea of this is that you are getting those really cool variations of textures and lines and marks that make your drawing so much more interesting and more expressive. It's not just a scribble drawing, it's this deep tonal drawing. They're brilliant ideas. Erasers are one of my favorite tools. I don't often use them to adjust my drawings. I've got this whole process when I do the line drawings where I actually erase the entire drawing and then come back and draw it again. Not tracing it, but I just draw it again, and those lines will be slightly different, the proportions might be a bit different, and it just keeps adding those layers and adding that tone that you don't get with a single line. Get that with multiple lines. And so recently I've actually been doing that process a couple of times. So I'll draw, erase, draw, erase, draw again, and then I actually go in with my eraser as a drawing tool, which is what you're doing when you create that mess and then take that away. Your eraser becomes essentially a white pastel or a white pencil. So you're taking it away. It's not an erasing a mistake. Rubbers aren't for mistakes in this process. Rubbers are for as a drawing tool. And so what happens is when you start using these things in different ways than what they're originally intended to, you get some really unique marks and some really cool effects, especially depending on which eraser you use. If you use a kneadable eraser, that's going to get a different effect to using a hard eraser, to using a softer eraser and things like that, you know. And the way you use it, like if you get that kneaded eraser, you make a little stick out of it and you roll it across, you're going to get different texture again than if you just use a normal eraser. So it's about playing with the tools in unconventional ways to see what you can create, and the marks, making those interesting, cool marks. Sometimes I even just use an eraser to blend my charcoal. So when your eraser gets quite a bit of build up of charcoal, it won't erase, it just moves. And so you can actually use that and smudge the charcoal around as well. So it's really cool. It's almost like a blending stump, but not quite. It's different to that. So I use it as similar to a blending stump. Although I have to admit, I don't actually use a blending stump very often at all. I use an eraser most of the time if I want to blend, or I use my fingers to really get in and do it how I want. The eraser's great because you can get that really directional stuff. If you're doing fur and stuff like that, you know, you're blending it that particular way. And then every now and then it does take a little bit of charcoal away. And so you get some really cool effects with that. It's kind of nice because, yeah, you lose a little bit of that control, but using those tools in unconventional ways or different ways. So as I mentioned, using your hands to push that charcoal around instead of the tools is really freeing. It's really freeing. You can wear gloves if you're not sure, you don't like the feel of it, but you can also do things like add water to it, and you get some really cool effects with that as well. And then you go over it again. It's about building those layers by adding different ways to add the charcoal or take the charcoal away. So it's about thinking about how am I going to do that for the effect that I want. Number 5. 5 in the air, let's do it together. I'm probably not allowed to sing that. It's probably, cut that, you know what I mean? Higher. Number 5 is a bit of a curveball. Number 5, some people may agree or disagree with this. Number 5 is about using a sketchbook. So a lot of the drawings you've seen me do during this video have been in a sketchbook that I created for a face-to-face charcoal workshop I'm doing. It would have already have happened by the time this video's out. I made it myself, and it's basically got different types of paper that I use for my charcoal drawing, so that when I'm in that workshop, my students can try different types, but it's in a sketchbook. And the reason I did this is the same reason why I suggest you play in your sketchbook as well. Contrary to what a lot of artists do on Instagram, sketchbooks don't have to be pretty. They don't have to look lovely. They don't have to be works of art in themselves. If you want to see some really great sketchbooks of exactly what I'm talking about, where someone's played and stuff, jump online. I think it's the Gallery of New South Wales, and have a look at Brett Whiteley's sketchbooks. I love his sketchbooks. They're not works of art. There's his sketches, they're his play, it's him exploring, which is precisely what you want in a sketchbook. A sketchbook, so there's a couple of benefits of it. A sketchbook is a very personal thing. So you don't have to share it with a soul. You don't have to share it. You can make as much ugly artwork as you want, and it's just for you and for you to practice. Beautiful. For me, when I create artworks on single sheets of paper, there is this unspoken pressure I put on myself that it has to be a complete work of art. And I get really cranky at myself if I don't think it's saleable, or I don't think it's up to scratch for me to sell on my shop, on my website, which is, link is in the bio if you want to have a look. There's a little voice in your head that goes, when you're doing it on a piece of paper, because it's the idea I might sell it, or is this what the world wants? Is this going to be saleable? Or are people going to think this is good? Or I don't want it. And suddenly you revert back into that perfectionism. And especially when you're exploring, you don't want that. You want to be able to explore without that pressure. To do that, you do it in a sketchbook. Yeah, okay, sometimes you can rip a page out of a sketchbook and sell it as an artwork. Fine, great, go for it. But when you pick up a sketchbook, the main purpose is not to make a piece of artwork that you're going to sell. And I love that. I personally have been doing a lot more sketchbook work because I need to get back in love with what I originally loved about making art. What a sketchbook does is it allows you to fall in love and enjoy the process of making the art and not worry about that final product. Because if it's ugly, you turn the page and you have another go. You're not going, oh my God, that was meant to be part of a collection of artworks. I can't sell it now. Doesn't matter. It's in your sketchbook. Turn the page, try again. When you enjoy the process, the product will always be better, whether you realize it or not. So enjoying the process, enjoying the play, going, oh, I think I like this. Oh, look at that, that looks cool. And artworks go through ugly phases. That's fine. But when you enjoy the process, the outcome will always be better. So getting to know all of these things in a sketchbook first, and even practicing them, I still do all this stuff in a sketchbook. So it's a great practice to get into. So some of the paper that I included in that sketchbook, I'll let you know what they are if you want to have a go at them, want to try them. I've got, I don't know if I used them all in this video, but there are 3 different colors of the Fabriano toned paper in sea, moss and sand. We have the Artec Como paper, which is a thicker drawing paper. It can handle a bit of wet media as well. I find it's a really good all-rounder. It's a 200 GSM. There's an Artec 80 GSM craft paper, as well as a 200 GSM craft paper is in there as well, but I don't know the brand of it. I've just got a big roll of it. And then there's an Artec just drawing paper in there as well, which is brilliant, just for artworks. And it's, you get 50 sheets, it's fairly inexpensive, and it kind of frees you up a little bit. Anyway, Feel free to practice each of these strategies on their own, in your sketchbook, on some paper, whatever you feel the need. I'd recommend in a sketchbook. Practice them on their own, but I never use them on their own. I always use a combination of at least 2 or 3 of them, especially things like using your left hand. That's an easy one to do in all of my artworks. I would recommend using, just try the one. I'm going to draw a drawing in my left hand and then try a different one, different strategy. I'm going to use a stick and I'm going to stand away, pretend I'm in Hogwarts, and then try combining those two, or try combining one of the other ones. Up to you which ones you try. They're not all going to work for everybody, and that's okay. However, if you do make some art and you're on Instagram, feel free to tag me at mace_made. Tag me in them. I'd love to see your creations. But don't forget to like and subscribe for my channel here. Follow me on Instagram, do all the good things. Check out my website if you feel the need. Subscribe to my newsletter. Trust me, it's worth it. You get 20% off. You find out everything out first, like when my shop updates are. So you get first pick. Just saying. And yeah, and I'll see you next week. Love you, legends.